July 1st, 2024, Tucson, Arizona, 4 a.m., 110 degrees. Woke up, stuffed energy bars to my backpack. Camera, check. Batteries, check. A message. Pick you up at 4:30. Bring passport. My local guide, Bob. And lots of water. It's a long ride. Sunshine face. 4 hours later, I was smuggled into Mexico. An empty town called TEDxSCIE. The streets were covered in Spanish posters, murals, neon lights, all of which were broken. There were no sign of human residents, only houses full of broken glass and gun holes. My phone was lost connection, and I asked Bob, "Hey, this can't be right. I'm meeting a humanitarian NGO in their TEDxSCIE office, and what's all this?" Yep, you guessed it right. We're in the wrong town. I was supposed to be in TEDxSCIE, Arizona, a peaceful little hamlet in the United States. But TEDxSCIE Sonora was in Mexico, and it was completely cleansed after a recent crossfire between rival gangs and cartels to control the human trafficking corridor, now stationed by the Mexican army. So I said to myself, no, we can't stay here. I have to get back. I don't want to die here. So then we speeded back to America, and at the checkpoint, a Border Patrol officer stopped us. He asked for our passports and why you were in Mexico. God, I was frightened. See, a Chinese national appearing in Mexico, and now you're trying to enter the United States. Officer, if I were you, I would have made an arrest already. And to your surprise, that was not the first time I was being questioned at the border. I spent the first 12 years of my life traveling across the Shenzhen-Hong Kong border, and I suspect that I might have talked with more Border Patrol officers than with my own parents. That's a Chinese thing. But that part of my life is a story for next time. And for the record, I explained my case lawfully and reasonably to the Border Patrol officers, got back to Tucson, Arizona safe and sound, and had a great meeting with the Tucson Samaritans, a church-affiliated organization, with whom I volunteered with for a month for my documentary. Yes, you heard it right. Last summer, this high school kid over here tried to film a documentary on the US-Mexico border. So for a month, I got up at 4:30, popped into Bob's car, and there we go. We headed right down to the end of the border wall. In Tucson, where there is more cactus than humans, around 30 Samaritans dedicated their lives in helping migrants who recently arrived in the United States through the deadly Sonora Desert. Migrants came from everywhere. Mexicans, Guatemalans, they're from El Salvador, Venezuela, Bangladesh, India, and even China. And under these blue tarps that we call tents, that's where I met the protagonists of my story today. They were exhausted, poached by the Arizonian sun. Some of them had bled and bruised. So counterintuitively, I kept my camera closed. And I looked straight into their eyes with my own. Their eyes were full of stories. Stories untold, stories behind those abandoned homes, stories that I didn't dare to ask, because to force them to recall everything they had just gone through was just too much for these poor, vulnerable souls. Too much, I thought to myself, until someone proved me wrong.
Death and pain and tragedy, but also it gave me the chance to live one more time.
Trace time back to year 1980. After a civil war just broke out in El Salvador, 45 Salvadorians gathered at the capital, men, women, children, families. The smuggler put them on a big bus for a 7-day journey. Going through mountains and rivers, the bus finally arrived at the deadly Sonoran Desert. Within an hour, you'll catch a plane to San Francisco, the smuggler told them. But in fact, the smuggler lied straight to their faces. So one by one, this flock of 45 Salvadorians crossed the barbed wire and entered the desert. They thought, we're going to be safe. It's America. But little did they know that they had just entered El Camino del Diablo, the Devil's Path, a 400-kilometer trail in the deadly Sonora Desert where no one, not even animals, got out alive. On the first day, they drank all the water and finished all the food they had. It was too hot, too tiring. The other morning, they lost their first woman, died, 3 a.m. in the morning of exhaustion. Said a prayer, they had to move on. By third day, they were like walking dead, no smiles, only an almost certain belief that they were going to die in this desert. On the fifth morning, 2 American Border Patrol officers found a girl lying under a tree, still breathing, slightly. So they picked her up, looked at her, and screamed to her face, "Don't go to sleep on me. Just don't die on me." Her name was Dora Rodriguez, one of the 13 survivors out of 45 who went into the desert in 1980. Dora is now a grandmother, an active advocate for migrant rights, and the founder of Casa de la Esperanza, an organization in Tucson that supports children while their parents underwent the asylum-seeking process. These children, their parents, in worst case, were being deported. So together with Dora, I spent 2 weeks at the summer camp, accompanying these kind, delightful kids as they traversed through Arizona. They went to their first library, visited their first zoo, that had their first PBJ and extra large chocolate sundae, to their first birthday party, and we even went shopping in a huge Costco as if it's Disneyland. After 2 weeks of intense babysitting, yes, parents, I feel you, very intense, but I received friendships, invaluable, and a gift that I could not possibly return. Miguel, 6-year-old from Venezuela, gave me this, his beloved toy donkey, on the last day we were together. He hugged me, whispered goodbye, and then sprinted off for his McDonald's, happy as ever. But then I froze. I froze because suddenly I remembered handing the same donkey to a man and his son at the Sonora Desert a few days ago. I looked at it and I said, hold on. This meant that they were being deported back to the land. This meant that Miguel needs to return to Venezuela where he could no longer afford burgers. And this meant that Miguel probably had known on the first day we met. But I did not. Like Dora's, like Miguel's, stories that I heard along my journey last summer has proved to me that an asylum seeker, or in other words, a refugee, a 6-year-old boy, or a teenage girl one step away from death, they are not vulnerable at all. They're all extraordinary souls with a profound love to share, to give, and to help others walk out of their own desperation. Fueled by sparks of hope for a better life, they entered a deadly desert, renouncing everything they had, and confronted death, so that when they walked out of the desert, they can be born again. So,
Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer.
my last day in Tucson was an airport Sunday. Sunday is a day of the week where Samaritans accompany migrants to cash their flights into Tucson Airport. Parents, I see there's quite a lot of you here today. You'll understand this. At the airport, we watch a familiar frame slowly vanish from your sight. Between you and your loved ones, there's a flock of travelers that we wish, why couldn't they just disappear now? We wave and wave, hoping that they'll look back, but at the same time, we hope they never do. Never look back. Keep striding on with free, wide steps towards your lovely future. And then we watch the aircraft as it launches into the clouds, sailing past the Arizonian sun, heading towards somewhere over the rainbow. And below it stood Bob, Dora, and I in silence. I volunteered in Tucson, Arizona, expecting to make a tremendous difference for people in need. But it turned out that all I could really provide was some food, some water. That was probably enough. Beyond the boundaries of knowledge and age and experience, my lack of a foundational awareness of what migrants had gone through forced me into speechlessness, exposed my ineptitude, and mocked the empathy that brought me to Tucson. It mocked the 17 years of international education that I once took pride in. It was the migrants who changed and saved my life, not the other way around. As a director, I learned that sometimes it's better to put aside your camera. As a passionate speaker, I learned that it's more important to listen than to speak. And as a human being, I learned that it is not only those tall metal bars that separate us, but the borders we built out of our own indifference, fear, and ignorance. And just think of how much violence, how many conflicts, how many broken families, tortured souls, hapless children who knew nothing but also everything, how many deaths it will take before we realize that we should do something. That we realize as human beings we are bound to take care of each other. That the problem is not there. It's right here. But at that moment, your mind can't bear anything, really. All hopes, prayers, held back tears will condense into repeated mumbles. We say, buena suerte, buena suerte. And frankly now, 12,309 kilometers away from Tucson, we can do nothing immediately to improve the lives of migrants. But I guess at least we can offer a little space here. A little hope, a line of prayer, and wish that I'll get there. That's how everything starts, right? That's it. Thank you.